number one, I do spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. And I always say to people, if you want to outsource recruiting, good luck. Trying to hire a recruiter to pitch your company, especially a startup, nobody's going to pitch it as well as you can. And I always say, you may be running a small show, but if you're still the CEO or the founder, who doesn't like to get an email from somebody saying hey, I heard great things about you. I often ping people on LinkedIn who I've heard great things about from my network, or people who look interesting to me, and have a great background. And I say, hey, I'm the CEO of Joyus. This is what we do. And I'd love to take you to coffee. And at the end of the day, I'm still a CEO, even if I'm a CEO of a one-person company. And, don't be surprised by how many people will actually take that meeting if you ask them for it. So I think number one, I use LinkedIn a lot. Number two, I do a lot of my own recruiting. That's not to say I never use a recruiter, and I need to use a recruiter in areas where I don't have a lot of tech savvy. But it's also true that, if you want to build the culture of the company, and you want to pitch the vision and get the best talent, how can you outsource that job to somebody else? So again, it's not to say I don't use recruiters and never have used recruiters. I use recruiters all the time at Google, but gosh, who wouldn't want to take that call? Mm-hmm. But when it comes to Joyus, I have to use all my personal brand. I have to use the vision of the company. I used to use everything to get the best people to the table. And I'm not just willing to give that job to somebody else. No, I'm not going to get the level of talent I'm satisfied with. So I think number two, you got to pitch yourself, and you got to think about it as a full-time job in some ways. As a CEO, I think it's one of the few things I can affect is who we bring into the company, even more than I can affect the day-to-day operations. And then number three, I think, and these are probably less about hiring tactics, but maybe a couple more on hiring. Number one, number three, the background reference, way more important than a reference call. That's and for me, even more important than interviewing, because you know what, an interview is a very funny way and a very short-lived way to make a very long-term decision. And so for me, there's no substitute for the background reference, and asking people not just what this person's good at, what they're not good at, so you understand what their strengths and weaknesses are. And I always ask my background references to calibrate the person that we're talking about. I'm top 1, 5, or 10% of people you've ever hired. I also ask that of the references people provide, because lots of people provide references to other people very liberally, right? But the reality is, the minute you ask a reference, was this person in the top 1, 5, or 10%, or 25% of people you hired, you're going to very quickly know if the reference that somebody gave is I'm doing this as a favor, or my God, I believe that this is a person you cannot not hire. And you often don't get the answer to that question unless you are very pointed in asking things how did this person stack rank? I know it sounds brutal, but it's true. People unfortunately give references very easily now. And over the years, I've learned that actually I want to give formal references much less, because unless I can authentically say that about the person who's being referenced, I actually don't want to be the reference. It's not good to them, and it's not good for me. So I asked that question, and in turn, it's actually made me, because of my own hiring practices, much warier to be references for people, unless I can authentically say that. Because if I'm going to be a reference for somebody, I actually want to help them get the job. Otherwise, I don't want to be listed. It puts everybody in an awkward position.